Welcome to Hell of a Pitcher. My name is Andrew Bartlett, and I am sitting across the internet as I do each and every week. Well, actually, not each and every week, because last week we were together, but we're not together anymore. We are separated by many miles. David Hollingsworth, how are you?
I'm okay. I am lamenting, the gulf now between us. It was a joy
tragic.
to record together last week.
It was.
That's the way to go, for sure. But we will set our sorrows aside and try to focus in on our subject this week, which is, you know what, if you are down in the dumps, if you're feeling a little glum, there's no better way to pull yourself up than, with a healthy dose of Twister.
Oh, yeah, Twister. That's what we're getting into today, continuing our 90s summer blockbusters. We did Independence Day a couple weeks ago. We did The Rock together last week. And now we're getting into Twister, which is quite timely because just came out in theaters. Twisters, not related to this. It is like, I think they describe it as it's a sequel, but not a direct sequel. So it's like not the same characters, obviously. R.I.P. Bill Paxton.
Yeah, I was a little confused about that. I sort of looked into it. I wasn't entirely sure. I can tell you though that we are booked in with tickets next Tuesday.
So nice.
We're ready. We're ready to rock on Twisters. Yeah.
I'll have to go myself, and then we can mention it on the show next week and just talk about it. Our initial thoughts on Twisters. But this isn't about Twisters. This is about Twister. And before we get into it, you want to do we were both thinking about last week. I think we were overcome with joy being in the same room recording together for the first time. It was our, I think, 11th picture that we discussed, which was amazing. But we both sort of left The Rock. I think this was the most contentious hell of a picture, like whether we made the right decision or not. I know I was toiling all week. Literally, it would creep into my thoughts, and I would think, did I really get that right in saying The Rock isn't a hell of a pitcher? Like, I love that movie, and I sort of started thinking about it more and more, and I feel like I might have got it wrong, but were you went through the same thing, right? You were thinking about that as well.
I was tormented. I was tormented all week. I didn't think I didn't know we did the right thing, and I didn't fully at the time, like I say, I think we were sort of overcome a little bit with sort of the fun of being together, and it didn't fully sort of crystallize for me why The Rock wasn't a hell of a picture. But when we started this whole series, we talked about how we think that great movies, unforgettable movies, the ones that we put up there on a pedestal, they bring together the best aspects of cinema, whether, the spectacle and excitement and also sincerity of emotion. And after time to reflect, it is the latter element that is missing from The Rock. The emotional motivation of the lead characters in that movie, Sean Connery's daughter, Nick Cage's girlfriend, and expected child, they really don't mean anything to me. It didn't matter to me if he wound up seeing his daughter. It didn't really, the emotional impact of Carla being in San Francisco that was supposed to raise the stakes for Stanley Goodspeed, it did not have a similar effect on me. But by contrast, in Independence Day, I was very happy when Will Smith and Vivica A. Fox got married. I was really moved that David and Connie got back together. And when you make movies like this, what separates them, what elevates them, what makes them a hell of a picture, is genuine investment in the emotional lives of the characters. So I think it's important that we clarify that. For me, I think you felt the same way. Yeah, that was what was missing.
I think you've discovered maybe a new characteristic of a hell of a picture, that emotional investment in the main characters. I mean, that seems like a simple thing for a lot of movies, but for big budget movies and blockbusters that sort of rely a lot on, flash and big action sequences. And sometimes the emotional aspect can get lost. And it's funny to think that in Independence Day, the emotional aspect seemed to be slightly more than in The Rock, which I can't disagree.
More than slightly, I would say. I honestly, like I said, like I was genuine. Like when Pullman gives his speech, moving, stirring, and oh yeah, buddy, I cracked out a real salute in that way. And just I loved the characters in a way that I didn't love them in The Rock, even though I liked them a lot. I like Connery, I like Cage, but that emotional attachment was not there for either of them. Whereas, like, I feel things for Firestein, Hirsch, excuse me, Goldblum, Pullman, even Will Smith. God help me, I actually feel things for Will Smith in this movie. So.
Well, in the words of Stanley Goodspeed, instead of I just want to find some rockets, maybe I just want to find some tornadoes. Let's get into Twister. Beautiful. I love that segue.
Fabulous.
Off the cuff. Yeah. Oh, yeah, just some tornadoes. And Tyler, the emotional aspect in this movie certainly is there. And before we get into a deep dive, Dave, hit us with the rundown. Let's get a background on those that haven't watched Twister in 30 years, 25 years. 20 years.
Yeah, if you're not like me and you don't watch this movie on the reg,
25
here
years.
is your
30
rundown.
years. 30 years. This came out in what, 96, so almost 30 years. Sorry. I digress.
No. That's important background. So, Twister tells the story of a team of storm chasers led by Dr. Joe Harding, a doctor of unknown discipline who, as a child, saw her father killed by an F5 and has held a grudge against tornadoes ever since. At the onset of a major storm event, Joe and the team are visited by their former colleague and husband, Bill Harding, who has come with new wife Melissa in tow to finalize the divorce between he and Joe. Within minutes of arriving, Bill and Melissa are drawn into the chase as the team barrels off down a set of rural roads in hopes of intercepting a tornado and implanting one of their 4 Dorothy within. The Dorothy are specially designed sensor delivery systems intended to study the inside of a twister, something never done before, and allowing the team to then develop an enhanced tornado warning system, saving thousands of people from a windy and wild death. On the way, they encounter another former colleague and current rival, Dr. Jonas Miller, who leads a cavalcade of Dodge Caravans on a similar mission. The two teams must battle each other and the elements in this relentless, cow-hurtling, fuel-truck-flying thrill ride. Twister was was released in 1996, as Andrew mentioned. It was directed by Jan de Bont, who also directed Speed and Speed 2, Cruise Control. It was also reported that he was a royal jackass during production, something we might get into later. It was written and produced by a team that actually included Michael Crichton and Steven Spielberg.
Jurassic Park.
As an interesting exactly. Yeah, the dream team. Interesting sort of point here. Crichton and his writing partner, Anne-Marie Martin, were paid $2.5 million for this script, making it the most expensive screenplay ever at the time. Yeah, it's pretty wild, eh? The script then went through a ton of hands, including Joss Whedon and Steve Zalian, who wrote Schindler's List and Clear and Present Danger. Yeah, it's sort of hard to figure how we came to what we ended up getting with all of those people. It changed. The script changing hands with all those people. But the film stars Helen Hunt as Dr. Joe Harding, Bill Paxton as Bill Harding. I guess they needed a Bill for this. He's also notably not a doctor. It's kind of interesting because all the main sort of storm people are doctors, with the exception of Paxton. I guess they didn't feel he could pull it off. We've got Philip Seymour Hoffman, ya boy, as Dusty Davis. We've got Jami Gertz, a Seinfeld alum, as Dr. Melissa Reeves. And Carrie Elwes, I mean, you gotta love Princess Bride.
Another Seinfeld alum.
Also played another Seinfeld alum. Yeah, great. Am I happy Beth left me? Of course not. Do I hope to pick up the pieces and move on? Absolutely. He plays Dr. Jonas Miller. Yes, of course, there's a host of other players and stuff like that. But those are the big guns. Twister cost about $90 million. And it took in an estimated $495 million around the world. The reviews are about what you'd expect. It's sort of in that 60% sort of C mark across the board. Unrelated to the rundown, but if you were looking for a place to stream this and you couldn't find it, Sam and I found it's $4.99 to buy on Amazon. Yeah. So that's something that's going to pay for itself 100 times over for us, because we watch this movie about twice a year. So that was a smart buy. So if you're looking for a digital copy of Twister, it is out there for a good price. And that's that's the rundown.
While you mention, watching this on streaming, I want to give another quick little tidbit that I came across. This was the first DVD ever created. Twister was.
I saw that.
So it was, when DVDs were getting on the go, this was the first kind of movie that they made as a DVD. And now, 30 years later, they've made sort of this anniversary version in the 4K edition. And
please tell me you have it. Please tell me you have it. You gonna pull it out? Ah, rats.
I was going to. But the interesting thing about this, the 4K, was the director, de Bont, he had a scene in the film that he actually couldn't do 30 years ago. And for the 4K version, he was able to change. So there's the scene when Bill is kind of before the storm. They're at the mom and pop's like restaurant diner, and he goes outside and he kind of like takes up the dirt and he kind of looks. Initially, in the initial film, he looks out and he sees sort of like the storm is brewing, right? And he can kind of tell, Initially, he wanted de Bont wanted
from
that,
the dirt,
of course. He wanted that to be there's this phenomenon in tornado chasing, or in tornadoes in general, that like before a tornado, a lot of times there's this kind of a green, almost like the Northern Lights. Like that's the color of the sky. And it's a phenomenon that happens a lot. When they tried to do it 30 years ago, the technology wasn't there to color grade it, because you'd end up color grading sort of the whole scene, and he'd be kind of washed out green, and the truck and everything would kind of have this green tint. So 30 years later, when they did the 4K version, he actually tweaked that scene, and he tweaked the colors to actually reflect what he wanted to create originally. Because there's these like moments in the film, Dusty sort of says, I can't remember the exact line, or something like there, he says like they go green way, or it's greenish, or it's like he mentions like green, and there's no real green in the film sort of besides that. So now it sort of makes sense. So anyways, that's a little tidbit about
so 4K Blu-ray, the only true way to see Twister, is what you're saying.
According to de Bont.
To preserve,
yes,
to preserve the artistic vision of Jan de Bont, we need to watch this in 4K.
He's interesting, man. I was like researching him for this, and he was a cinematographer first. He was a cinematographer for Die Hard. He did a bunch of sort of action movies. Then he went and started directing. Like you said, he did Speed, and then he did this film, and then he did Speed 2, did some other stuff. And then his last movie he directed was a sequel to Tomb Raider, like Lara Croft's Tomb Raider, or whatever it's called, in like 2010 or something, or 2005 or something like that. And he hasn't worked since. And he's had projects like sort of in development, and he was there was a point he was going to do a sequel to this, and that sort of fell through. But yeah, he hasn't really worked in 20 years. He's just sort of like hanging out.
Well, he actually did a little bit of cinematography himself on this, because at one point he was such a terror. He even sort of lightly assaulted like an AD or something like that on set. And so the cinematographer and part of the crew walked. They were just like, F this, we're out of here. So then this other guy had to step in. The guy who was actually, if you do, when you just do your Google search, the person who's credited as cinematographer, he was not the original one. He had to step in, and then he got injured in an on-set accident. So then de Bont stepped in. So this movie was just plagued with all kinds of bad behavior and, disaster. At one point, well, actually, the actors incurred some hardship of their own. It was, I'll just jump right to it. Actually, I'll give you a little taste of what they got. Due to an unsanitary ditch, filming in a defile of some kind, both Paxton and Hunt were required to get hepatitis shots. So,
oh Jesus Christ!
So this thing was down in the dirt, man. De Bont got grimy for this one.
But that's what I think works about this movie. And sorry, when we get into the weeds of the scenes and throughout the movie. This movie really uses the same idea that sort of Jurassic Park did. It uses practicals and also special effects, FX, but it does it really well. And that was one thing that de Bont was very like adamant about. So like he wanted all the wind stuff and all like the the cow move like floating across in front of them. That's obviously CGI. But like the hailstorm, they were like driving. They had these like big chunks of hail that they had like crushed down to like make essentially hail bits. They had this massive like wind thing pushing it. So they have this truck in front of them, this tractor trailer truck in front of them, essentially throwing like actual big hail pieces onto the truck that Paxton and Hunt are driving. And it's like that's like very dangerous. And that was like a lot of what was happening in the movie. I didn't even read about the hepatitis shot, so that's that's pretty wild. But it works. I think my point is that there's a lot. The thing that we're both suckers for is that the practicals of effects and big budget things, like it makes it feel real and authentic.
For sure. No, there is a good marriage here between practical and special effects. Continuing with what we talked about with The Rock and Independence, the idea of these being, ostensibly or in a lot of ways bad movies that find a way to be good.
Sure.
And more than the previous two movies, I think this movie leans toward the bad. I think the bad good ratio here is the highest. And because The Rock, though lacking in emotion, has some really great performances. Independence Day, in addition to great performances, has characters I really care about. And like we talked about, the emotional aspect of it.
Right.
I don't think Twister has nearly as much of either. There are characters and performances that we will be discussing. But I don't really care about them. And when I'm laughing, I'm more so laughing at them than with them.
Right.
And can you, when you think about it, one of the things we talked about was quotability.
Yes.
Do you quote this movie?
No.
You do quote this movie?
No, not at all.
Okay, all right. Okay, I was about to say, wow, you just totally ruined my point. No, good.
No. I watched this movie last night. I mean, I don't think I can quote one line from the movie.
Not really.
There's nothing that's really like.
Not really, no.
Yeah, I mean, there's moments that are I guess you're supposed to be quotable, but I don't know. Like the most interesting character. I mean, some of the characters I think are.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
I got figures.
Catastrophe.
Data falling down. Data from the Goonies.
Oh no!
I know.
No, it's not.
$50 bill. It's my favorite Goonies character.
Bill. My goodness.
Favorite Goonies
character. Wow. For anyone not watching the video, Andrew just had a set malfunction. And hopefully the figures are still in mint condition. I hope nothing was ruined.
No, maybe a little bend in the packaging, but they're not going anywhere, man. I'm not getting rid of them. They're staying on my wall.
No, hell no.
Anyway, the most interesting characters for me, I think, that Dusty is incredible. But I feel like that's Philip Seymour Hoffman putting his own sort of like, this is the beginning of his career. And he's putting sort of this interesting twist on sort of a happy-go-lucky character. I think a lot of these characters, these sort of secondary characters, that's why he sort of stands out as the secondary characters. Dusty is sort of this like, you have these other guys, the guy from Ferris Bueller's Day Off is in there. A guy who later went on to be Alan Ruck. There's a guy who was He was
also in Speed. He was on the bus.
He was on the bus.
Remember,
de Bont loves him. They seem a bit like interchangeable. Like it's not really. It's like I guess one person's a videographer or photographer.
Yeah.
Yet somehow Joe
one of them is the map guy. Alan Ruck is the map guy. That's basically his job.
You know, the other I love it. And it's like the other female scientist is like when they get the Dorothy up in the end, she's like, you know, like all the like data is coming in, and it's just like numbers, like just like binary code flying through the computer screen. There's like the guy that almost gets his head chopped off. There's the other guy who's just sort of like another driver, and they feel a bit interchangeable. Like the only people with substance really are Dusty, Joe, Bill, and then I guess the fiance, who Melissa, who is a sidebar. In doing research, she is actually the richest actor in the history or in the world right now. She married
not through any fault of her acting. So.
I like her, man. I think she was good in this, but she's she married a billionaire.
Yeah, and they're also like in the ownership group for the Atlanta Hawks. Interestingly enough, a little basketball connection in there. But I mean, you know, it's a smart investment marrying a billionaire. I think more people ought to do it. But yeah, no, like I said, getting back to the quotability, I watch this movie a lot. Like I did, Sam and I probably watch it twice a year.
Yeah.
And we do not quote it at all. But, you know, we talked about defining success of a film in a way that is unique to a film. I think the best version of this movie is the shitty version. And that's the version we get. You know what I mean? Like it's not Sharknado shitty. I don't want that. But yeah, this movie believes in itself enough. And it doesn't wink at me when it knows it's being stupid, but it is pretty friggin' dumb. What supports this? What makes it work is the pace. This movie thrives on its velocity because it starts like, well, first of all, you get the opening scene with Helen Hunt and her family, you know, as a kid. Can we just agree that the dad could have survived if he let go of the friggin' door? If he just goes into the shelter with his wife and child, there's no emotional motivation for, like, he doesn't die. He's fine. Like, it's ludicrous.
I mean, I guess the thought is he's holding the door, thinking if the door blows open, it's going to suck everybody out. When in reality, the wife and the kid Joe, and even the fucking dog are in the back of the cellar standing like no problem once it gets blown open. It's like, let the door blow open. But I guess in his mind...
He clearly has some kind of unnatural attachment to the door. I feel like the door is special to him in some way.
So lots of doors, handles, and closing and shutting up, pulling of doors. And...
He might have got a better lock or something, because it's basically like, you know, it's just this weak little, like, exactly. It's just outrageous. But yeah, from that you jump right into Bill and Melissa. They show up, meet the team on site, and then you're driving. Then you're just driving. You're just barreling down the road, and it's on. So you really don't have a lot of time to dwell on the sillier things, and it does that well. You've got to give it props for masking its own idiocy with just an unrelenting acceleration and velocity. And I think that's what makes it work.
I also want to say that I think what else this film has going for it is, you know, I really think this was, I mean, Helen Hunt, I guess, is sort of a big star at this point when they shot this.
Maybe, I mean, she's in Mad About You, you know, George's favorite sitcom.
Man, when he's sitting there during the credits and he's watching it, and he's just dead-faced.
Just dejected.
Hates his life.
Yeah, he's so disgusted with his life choices.
It's like, this is the worst.
Tell me why I love you like I do.
Oh, man. Mad About You. That went from 92 to 99. So, yeah, she was... that's interesting. She was, like, heavy into that.
Yep.
But then she did win the Academy Award like a couple years or the following year after this in As Good as It Gets. But she was like...
Did she really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So she... But I think the interesting thing about her, I think she really... she drives the movie. Like, I think her character is quite... I don't want to say appealing, but like, she's just like... I'm captivated by her. I'm like, oh, she is like fucking cool.
I think it's the best performance.
Badass. And yeah. And she's like, you know, and the Bill Paxton, like, I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but
it's okay. Enough time has passed. You can, yeah.
Yeah, like
you're criticizing his work, not
his
the man.
performance.
Let's make that distinction there. Yeah,
he's great in a lot of other things. But yeah, I
wonder about that.
Really, you got qualms with Bill Paxton?
I know. Here's the thing. I question if he is a good actor. I do know for sure. I like seeing him on screen. I love you. Give me Paxton in a movie. I'm thrilled at that. But that is not the same as him being good. I think he might actually suck. His delivery in this movie is sometimes, oh my God, what a ham. When he's punching the air, like when he gets mad at he throws little tantrums in this movie on a couple of occasions. He just, yeah, come on. Yeah, he does this like a few times. It is so brutal. My God.
I was wondering about like just their relationship and how it's written. And it's like he brings the fiance first, which is like, I mean, what are you doing? I understand, I guess, but like that whole
irresponsible to bring her on the chase, though. You know what I mean?
Brings her on the chase
when they go after the tornado.
But then it's like he's obviously supposed to marry this woman, and then then they're in that big emotional, like the rain is like, it's like you never like looked at what's in front of you, like me.
Yeah,
like
it's
I'm
too
here,
late, Joe. It's too late. Yeah.
It's like, what are you talking about? You're like literally trying to get her to sign papers. I guess he's talking about the past, maybe, but I guess I don't understand the whole idea of, and then the fiance is just like go, like I'm not that upset about it.
She's totally fine with it. It is absolutely outrageous that
the first clean break in relationship history.
That's right. But like, it's interesting because she's in a lot of versions of this movie, she's just shitty. She's just a bad person. But it's way more interesting because she's not. She's actually pretty nice.
She's
almost great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hilariously cruel what Paxton does to her, and that she's good natured about it. I mean, what?
She's a doctor, and she's like getting like, and I don't know, like if they gave her this like.
Pretty sure she bought him that truck. I don't think he's got the money for that truck.
He's a weatherman. He like they
That's true.
They give this They give her like a southern twang, and it's like it's almost like to make her sound like stupid.
Almost flinty.
It's like yeah, I don't know what it is. It's just sort of like it's almost like to make her like less appealing or something. I don't know, but she's like I don't know, like, and I guess my
she's
point
clearly
is
less capable than Joe. She's not as capable as Joe. And I think you're right with the southern accent. It does make her seem a little, I guess less capable than Joe. Like she does have this sort of ditzy way about her. And that scene where she's like, I gotta go. We got cows. I love that. That's a funny line. That might be the more quotable line of the movie.
That's right. We got cows. Yeah. Yeah. That's probably the most quotable. And then when he says cow. Another cow.
Yeah,
I think that's
another cow. Yeah, that's a Joss Whedon line. Apparently, that was his big contribution to script doctoring. Yeah, that's what he got his hands on.
But all these movies, they do seem that like have to have like. Let's just talk about the Carrie Elwes character. Like this, the first thing I noticed.
How do you pronounce his name? How do you pronounce his name?
Carrie. Elwes?
I don't know. I'm not sure. So I'm looking to you for direction on this.
I thought you were making fun of me. I thought you were making fun of me.
No. I genuinely want to know. That's how I say it, just because it rolls a little easier. But like when you read it, it's kind of it's a cumbersome word, isn't it?
Carrie Elwes.
It's Elwes.
Yes, Carrie Elwes.
So.
Oh,
Should we look up? Is this another Saoirse situation? Did we get the YouTube instructional on how to pronounce Carrie?
This is how you pronounce Carrie Elves. Anyway,
or do we just
Carrie.
mumble it forever? We probably
Carrie
just mumble it forever.
Yeah. So the first thing that stuck out to me when they sort of his group kind of show up is those caravans, man. Those Dodge Caravans were like
Dodge Caravans, a freaking fleet of them.
The fleet of them, and they were like, I remember when they dropped in the 90s, and they were like a redesigned one. They were super cool, and people had them, and it was like,
you have one? I'm pretty sure you guys were.
We had one. No, we had a Dodge Caravan, but it wasn't like this was.
You had the precursor to this Caravan.
Yes,
right?
So we had a piece of shit. One that was like not the lights used to flicker on and off. We used to say it was possessed. Man, what a piece of junk that was. But like then these dropped in like nice, and these were like all tinted out in the movie. It was like, man, these are super cool. And now you see them and you're like, holy shit.
Change the minivan game forever.
These are so 90s. But you gotta sort of bring in these, I don't want to say evil characters, but like just like them against the tornado is not enough. Them fighting it's like you have to bring in like people that
correct
are sort of like just bad people. It's like similar to Jurassic Park. It's not enough for have them against just the dinosaurs. It's like you got to bring in a Newman and have him be like the piece of shit character in it.
And the blood-sucking lawyer.
And the blood-sucking lawyer. But
yeah.
But all of these,
you need someone that you can confront directly. You know what I mean? That you can punch in the face, like when Paxton like charges at them, and that scene when there's a little dust up outside of the diner, and what's your malfunction, man? The guy yells at him to cheer. It's incredible, just incredible.
Yeah,
you're right. You do need that human antagonist for sure.
Yeah, and he eats it in the worst kind of way. Doesn't listen to him. But then
it's funny because like for the whole movie, that's exactly what he does. Like he steals Paxton's ideas, and then the one time that he doesn't try to just sort of follow Paxton, it leads him to his demise. So let that be a lesson to you.
Always follow Paxton.
Always follow Bill Paxton. That's right. That's the takeaway.
And we mentioned it a bit earlier, but we also talked a lot about we were talking about kind of like the crew that are like the one thing I feel like they got right was the casting, even though it seems like, okay, you got like eight of these people. They all have these like sort of like unique looks to them. And like you said, the Alan Rooks, like the other side, like, I don't even know all their names. And the Dusty character. I mean, Dusty is just so like, you're like, oh man, this is great. And it wasn't Philip Seymour Hoffman's first job because he's been working for a while.
No.
But this is when he sort of like started really coming on the scene. And he did like Boogie Nights right after this, which he's absolutely incredible in. And then he sort of stepped into this new realm of being this like just this incredible character actor. And I think he, like you said, I think him and the fiance, even though Joe drives the story, the performance that they give are both phenomenal. I think anyway, specifically him when it comes to, and it's a reason why he's given all those sort of the fun lines within this kind of group of like nomads. What did you think of his performance?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I would like to know how he felt about his performance. Obviously, something that we're never going to get. But I wonder if this was one he sort of had to choke down a little bit. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't think so.
This is a man of no. I mean,
no, because this is so early in his career.
Talent.
Yeah, this is like
sure.
He comes from the theater world, and he had been doing theater shows and whatever, and but like his early work was off Broadway theater. He did Son of a Woman. He was in Son of a Woman with Pacino. which he got like a lot of
Mm.
praise for in like 92. And he started like, yeah, I think at this point in your career, when you're somebody like that, like you're just trying to get work, right? You're trying to act and you're trying to bring
I guess so,
unique, interesting ideas to these kind of characters that, you know, in the hands, if you sort of take Dusty out and sort of give all of his lines of those kind of the rest of those kind of other characters, the rest of the crew, like it obviously just, I don't think it hits nearly as good.
No, you're right. You're right. Or if you give it to Garth Brooks, which they originally planned on. Apparently,
What?
this role was, potentially to have been played by Garth. I got friends in low places, Brooks. So chew on that for a little bit as we think about, you know, what Cy Hoffman did with this role. Let's take a moment. Cy Hoffman. Oh man,
Phil Cy.
Let's think about what Garth Brooks could have done. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's I wonder. I feel like we were maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe his sort of the niche that he found was the right one for him. But it feels like Philip Seymour Hoffman never really became a leading man. He always played these great supporting roles. Now he did have some like Capote, he was lead, and you know there were some other things in there. But a lot of the time he plays a really memorable and tremendous secondary supporting character. Right. You know, like The Big Lebowski. He's sort of minor in that one, but like The Talented Mr. Ripley. Now in MI3, his role of Owen Davian, the villain in that movie, was unforgettable. I absolutely love him in that. I think he is the one Mission Impossible villain that I can really remember. Otherwise, they're all sort of fungible and, you know, just forgettable. But he stands out as like an actual arch villain in that movie.
He's incredible in MI3. I think for me, I've always been, Philip Seymour Hoffman is and will always be my favorite actor. And I've seen obviously most of his stuff. He does, you know, you say he plays sort of a really interesting supporting roles. And like you said, he does have leading roles that are really captivating and incredible kind of later on in his career. Like you mentioned, Capote, where he won the Oscar for. He has some really amazing like roles in, you know, like Before the Devil Knows You're Dead and The Master. He's incredible in. And he does have these leading roles. A lot of his most interesting work, like you said, is sort of the late 90s run, early 2000s. It sort of kicks it off with Twister, and then not kicks it off with Twister. He does like Son of a Woman. He does Twister. He does Boogie Nights, where his role is so good. He does Punch Drunk Love. He does The Big Lebowski. He does these character roles that are just like very like captivating. You're just like captivated by his performances. He brings these unique interpretations of characters, like even in Almost Famous, in Magnolia, where he has sort of this bit role as the nurse, and it's just like you're just blown away by him whenever he's on screen. I could talk about.
I forget about him in Almost Famous a lot. That's a really important like sort of part. Like he's sort of like the writing mentor of the young Cameron Crowe character. Well, he gets based on young Cameron Crowe.
Yeah, and he gets the, you know, he gets calls from the guy, and he's sort of, you know, these people aren't your friends, and gives them advice, and
you are not cool, my friend. I have mentioned they make you feel cool. You are not cool.
All that to be said, maybe we'll be doing some Philip Seymour Hoffman performances later in our series, in our Hell of a Pictures.
We damn well better.
But I could talk about.
Didn't you have a near brush? Didn't you have a near brush with? Do you want to get into it, or is it?
Okay, so I'm going to tell this quick story about Philip Seymour Hoffman. He was in Toronto when I was living there. He went there in 2010. I think it was. So 2010, he directed his first film, which was the only film he directed, called Jack Goes Boating. And it is based on a play of the same name, which he starred in. So he shot this this kind of like little, it's a, you know, drama, and he stars in it. It's a small cast, and he was in Toronto because it was premiering at TIFF. So being the super fan that I was like, well, I have to go see it. So I got tickets to the opening show, but then he was also doing this Q&A. Tried to get tickets to the Q&A. It sold out. So I was like, well, I got to go line up, because they give them, you know, if you go to these events or whatever, you line up early enough, they have 20 seats or whatever that they hold. So I'm like, okay, the Q&A is at 7 p.m. tonight. I got there at 7 a.m. I was like literally like the first person in line, and they were like, what are you here for? I'm like, I'm here for the Q&A. They're like, it's in 12 hours. Like, what are you doing here? Like, oh, just like, you know, make sure that I get a ticket. Like, I was not going to miss this. So I'm sitting in line. These 4 girls kind of come up behind me a couple hours in, and they're like, are you here for like the tickets for the Q&A? I was like, yes. Anyways, they sit down next to me. We're chatting. They're like around our age. We're having a good time, a laugh or whatever. The day goes by. We're playing cards. We're just killing time, waiting to get these tickets. And we're like fairly close to like sort of this back door, right? This like side door, I guess probably within 5 to 10 feet. And I'm facing the door. The girls are sort of behind. We're sort of in a circle playing cards, and it's, you know, it's about we've gotten the tickets at this point, but we're still waiting in the line. And anyway, how from the door comes Philip Seymour Hoffman to fucking light up a smoke. So he's standing outside by himself, like, you know, within 10 feet of 15 feet of me. So I started having a panic attack. Now, I'm not one to be like, like fangirl over people, met famous people before. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh my God, whatever. But there's like literally probably a half dozen people that I would go. The Goonies was one. And
any member of the Goonies?
Well,
any and all.
When I met the Goonies, this is a very tangent, but this is you can't even see my face, but because it's all.
I have seen the picture before, though.
So it's me when I met the Goonies.
You look elated. Yeah.
Oh my God, Data and Corey Feldman and John. Anyways, I was like almost cried because I was so happy. Anyways, I was feeling this like, oh my God, like I'm like I have to go say something. Of course, the girls say like, no, what are you talking about? You can't go up to Philip Seymour Hoffman. I was like, well, like, when am I ever going to get the chance again? Like, he's right there. I could just go up and just all I want. It's that thing that everybody goes through when they see somebody famous. You don't want to be a weirdo. You don't want to be like, hey, what's happening? Like, you want to be my friend? It's like, you want to just.
You owe me. You owe me.
There's just something inside of you that's just like, I just want to tell them, hey, like, I love your stuff. It's incredible. You know. It's like something inside of you just wants to tell them. And the majority of famous people that, you know, from what I've heard, a lot of people are just like, appreciate that. They're like, thanks, cool. Like, it's always nice to hear that you're very much appreciated. You know, I think as a human.
Yeah.
This is a long tangent anyway. Anyway, the girls are like, you cannot go over. Like, oh, you're going to be a weirdo. Like, do not go over. I'm just like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go up. So I'm like getting ready to go up. As I'm like, almost like, you know, I'm getting up off the ground or whatever. Javier Bardem comes out and he lights up a smoke.
Oh my God.
And him and Javier Bardem are having this chat, and they're like chatting outside, having a smoke, kind of like just like within kind of arm's shot of people. But like, you know, nobody's really bothering them or whatever. And I'm like, oh, well, I can't go over now. He's talking to Javier Bardem.
Javier Bardem might kill you if you interrupt his conversation.
So I was just like, Anton Sugar. And I was like, you know, Anton Sugar is the guy from No Country. I was like,
No Country for Old Men, of course.
Yeah, of course. And this was post Country for Old Men. Anyways, so then I was like, I sort of hesitated, and I was like, well, I can't go over it because like there's 2 people there now or whatever. I got in my head. They finished their smoke. They went inside. And I was, I've never had the chance, obviously. And devastated. I lost the chance to, you know, talk to him or meet him, obviously. And then he he has since passed away or died.
And you've never forgiven Javier Bardem.
It was more so
grudge.
It was more so the girls.
You blame the girls.
Like, you can't.
You blame the girls. Yeah,
100% blame the girls. They were like, you can't go over. I mean, God, you can't go. So it's like I never.
You can't
had
be
that
mad
chance.
at Javier Bardem because then you're not going to see all these great movies, all this great work that he's doing. It's very easy to be mad at these random girls who you'll never meet again.
Exactly.
I'm gonna guess have a much less impressive film resume than Bardem. So
certainly do.
Yeah,
but anyways,
on the subject of grudges, so I do.
Sorry, so that was a long a long tangent about Philip Seymour Hoffman. No. I could talk about him forever. Sorry, let's get back on track here. Jesus.
No, I'm really glad you did. I wanted you to tell that story because I love it. I actually love that story. But yeah, on the subject of grudges, does it feel to you like the whole tornado thing is personal for Helen Hunt? Like
100%.
It almost feels like she blames the F5. And let's just talk about the F5
I think she does.
for a second. She does. And there is like this weird taboo amongst the group when it comes to the mentioning of the F5. They're sitting around the table. They're having that meal that Aunt Meg has prepared for them. Helen Hunt is off in the shower. And they're talking very glibly about F3s and 4s. And like, an F4, that'd relocate your house pretty effectively. And then Melissa, sort of plucks up and says, have any of you ever seen an F5? And the friggin' air goes out of the room. Just silence falls over. A pall, comes over the crowd. And it's because, Joe has experienced an F5. And, are they just not allowed to talk about this ever? Is that how, because, we're talking about 1/5 of the scale that largely defines their profession. And they can't fucking talk about it? What if she was at a conference and she's the keynote speaker and someone brings up an F5? Is she just going to lose it and walk off stage? This is ridiculous.
Don't bring up the F5.
Exactly. Just go stone-faced. We don't talk about the F5.
Don't talk about the F5.
Don't ever bring up the F5.
Have any of you guys ever seen the F5? Well, one of us. And then it cuts to her in the shower, and she's like, it's obviously Joe. Joe's the one we're talking about. It's for dramatic effect, I think. Obviously.
But it does seem like there's this oh God, we don't talk about that. Everyone sort of dropped, you hear plates in cutlery clatter, and stuff it's like a record sort of scratch moment. And it's just so weird. And again, it seems like it's almost like the Jaws thing. Did you ever see Jaws 4 where the shark pursues the ancestors of the original Jaws family, follows them to the Bahamas? They take a plane and the shark tracks them. It's like an Indiana Jones style plane over map tracking shot, and the shark tails them basically. This is the same sort of thing. It's as though the F5 has followed her throughout her life and is back to get revenge. She's going to finish the job, is what it is. Much like the shark in Jaws 4.
It makes sense because
that's my thing.
It's similar to this idea that we're talking about earlier. It's you need some sort of emotional connection to the bad guy or the bad thing that's happening. I get it. It's not enough that it's a tornado or a twister. It has to be the worst kind, and it has to be the worst kind that only she can relate to, which makes it so obviously more motivation for her as a character. It's more of a character driving point to drive the plot. The one thing I will say about that's I like how it's sort of these sort of disaster movies. We've talked about a few now: Jaws, Jurassic Park, now this one. They sort of end. They end abruptly, but it's sort of I like that ending. I sort of you sort of know what's going to happen. They have these 4 chances with Dorothy's, and they obviously botched 3 of them. And then, the final one, it gets up and they get it and they completed their task. Jaws, they kill the shark, Jurassic Park, they get off the island. And then it's just sort of ends. It's just this, but it's this kind of it's like you said, the pacing of the movie, it's just the pacing going. And once they get their main objective, it's you got to get the balls into the tornado. That's the objective of the whole film. Yeah, signing the
Yep.
papers. Yeah, like saving the aunt. Yeah, these sort of side kind of things happen. Them getting back together. It's all like obviously to make it a more of an emotional film. But like the main point is to get the balls in the tornado so they can get the data. Main point is to kill the shark. The main point is to get off Jurassic Park. And it's like when these movies sort of, I like how they just sort of end and there's just like this bow on top. Unlike the Rock last week, which sort of ended and then it was like, okay, then now what's happening now? Okay, is where's Sean Connery's character going? He's 1,000 miles away.
So where isn't he going?
And then now
he could be literally anywhere.
Yeah, now he's evaporated. But then there's this sidebar where he's going and getting vaporized. Yeah, I don't know. And like same with Independence Day. Independence Day sort of ends, and we're gonna tell them how to take these sons of bitches down. And it's like I guess the thing, the rambling point I'm making is I like the cleanliness of this ending. I like how it's a clean sort of like
correct.
Joe and Bill get back together. They're both gonna run this. They're gonna do like whether they make it or don't make it as a couple is sort of doesn't really matter.
Not important.
It's not important.
Not important.
And they have that nice touching moment where they make out and the whole team is cheering. And it's, I don't know.
Best way to end any movie. Best way to end any movie.
Yeah.
Making out with all your friends watching. That's what you need. Which is what happens here. But I agree with you. You don't need sort of like a housekeeping scene at the end where you tidy up stuff and you get this last little sort of, no, like you have got the sensors up in the twister. You survived the twister, which I think we can agree is outrageous. They would have been like torn to shreds by flying debris. Like they just would have been like piles of like bloody bone at that point. But yeah, forgetting that, they achieve the objective, make out, end a movie. Perfect.
Also where they randomly run into like the farmhouse from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's just like,
that was funny. They make a joke of that too.
They're like,
who are these people?
Like,
oh God, so
it
great.
Worked. I will say that I did love another thing I thought was pretty great. The moment where they do find the pipe and he's like, these pipes go 30 feet down. Like, let's tie ourselves off. And they tie themselves off, but then they get the shot of them inside that was the other thing. It's like nobody's seen the inside of a twister before. Like nobody's been inside, and we get that really cool shot of them sort of looking up, and you see like the sort of twister inside the twister, and they're getting sucked up through it, but they're obviously still there. And yeah, there's some like really cool moments like that in the film that I think do work. Sure. And like you said, the pacing of the movie, but also the simplicity of it too. It's like I like when Independence Day sort of tended to be a bit more convoluted, but like, okay, so now there's a mothership, but they have to go to the mothership, and then there's these smaller ships, and the smaller ships are everywhere. It is it's not super elaborate, but the same with this is this is very simple. This is like, we're chasing twisters, and this is what we're doing. We've got to drop this thing in the twister, and they set it out from the get-go, and it's like, we have that one objective throughout the whole film. And I think that's what makes it sort of an entertaining film, because you're sort of on this one thrill ride with the crew.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I find that the objective kind of gets lost in this movie from time to time, because it just sort of seems like more so the point. Like I sort of forgot every now and then that, like, yeah, we're trying to get this piece of equipment up in the twister. A lot of the time, it just seems like we're just going to chase after these things and then try to run away from them. You know what I mean? Like basically, like they drive really fast to catch up to a twister, and then they would try really hard to not get killed by a twister. It seems like it's almost just like you could just avoid all of this by not going near twisters. That would be the smart play. But you're right. It is simple. It's fast, and it does what it does effectively. And we talked about this again, like, defining success of a movie by what it intends to achieve. I think this movie achieves what it intends to. Certainly financially it did.
Yes.
It had massive profit margin, and people saw it, and it is entertaining. Like, I do watch this movie more than I watch The Rock, honestly.
Wow.
So that's in part, due to Sam. She loves it, but I love it too because it's a hoot. It is
It
a
is.
hoot. I think so. I think we've surrounded this. We can sort of bridge our way into the hell of a picture debate. If you agree, of course.
I do.
Okay.
I'm curious for you. Well, are you going to turn your key?
Yeah, I know. I
Is this
I
a hell of
deferred
a
to
picture
you last
for you?
week. I will not.
Yeah.
I'll take the lead on this one here. At a certain point, I think a good bad ratio can be. Well, I guess the question is, can it be tipped in such a way that a movie is consigned to some kind of place where a hell of a picture cannot emerge? Even if you achieve something, what you set out to do, is the thing itself that you achieve by its very nature sort of exempt from this kind of accolade. That might be too sweeping a statement, but I think for this film, it's accurate. I love watching this movie. I'm not interested in seeing a better version of it. I think the version of it is as it should be. But this is not a hell of a picture for me. It's
Right.
a perfectly stupid fun movie that I can rewatch and not think about. It's like puke. It's a funny word, and you don't have to think too much about it. I think it lacks the quotability of Independence Day or The Rock, and I think that's
Certainly
sort of.
does.
I think if it had that, you could probably overcome other things, like other sort of failings that it has, which is what happened with Independence Day and to a lesser extent The Rock. It's just sort of missing that, but super fun to watch and rewatch, but not a hell of a picture for me. Not even really close, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Upon rewatching, I felt the same way. I said this isn't even. I don't feel like it's in the same ballpark as The Rock or Independence Day when it comes to a hell of a picture. Still good and still fun and mindless, and they sort of throw it on and not think, and I can walk up and go get a drink or go to the bathroom and keep the movie running and come back and be like, I know where I'm at. Like, I don't need to pause because I'm going to be worried that I'm not going to get get them out of there, or I'm not going to miss any classic lines or any classic moments. It's just like,
you're going to miss Bill Pullman handling a mound of dirt and somehow from that deriving where the storm's going. Like, what the shit was that?
Yeah, apparently he was a mind reader when it came to storms. That were like, nobody can do it like Bill. Reader. Nobody can read a storm. Nobody has been able to like Bill. I am interested. I will say, you're gonna go see it. I'm gonna go see it. The new Twisters. I'm very interested to see what that'll look like. If it'll be sort of like a remake or if it'll be sort of just a sequel, or sort of just it's another movie about storm chasers, and it's gonna just be in the same sort of vein as Twister, but it's not, has nothing to do with it. Because I feel like it's gonna do fairly well. Glenn Powell is the lead, and he's sort of this. I mean, he's almost like the next big thing when it comes to sort of Hollywood.
Not that big, because I don't know the name. Glenn Powell doesn't strike me as the name of the next big thing. I'm sorry.
No, man, Glenn Powell is he was in Top Gun, right? He was in
the Maverick, Top Gun Maverick. Yeah. He was the Iceman. He was the new Iceman, basically.
Yes,
kind of the standoffish. Yeah.
Yeah, he has, he was that, he's in that Anyone But You with Sydney Sweeney. He's sort of coming up as the next sort of, I feel like this is going to be the launching thing for him into the next sort of, I want to say stratosphere of superstardom, right? He has something.
If you want to be the next big thing, you need a name like Timothée Chalamet, as far as I'm concerned. Glenn Powell, is it? Doesn't he read? It feels like a local news anchor or something like that. That's not next big thing.
Glenn Powell.
He's reporting.
He has some things to learn, I think, about. There's this interesting. I guess it was like an article or tweet I saw where Tom Cruise had gone to, I guess, the advanced screening of Twisters. And him and Glenn Powell are sort of there together. And it's this behind the scenes sort of shot of somebody taken from a camera, and it's like, Glenn Powell, because they did Top Gun together, so they're buddies obviously, and Tom Cruise is there supporting him, and they're like, okay, let's get a picture, and they're like in a theater together, and it's like Tom Cruise just is like aura of Hollywood superstar, right? And like even how he's holding the popcorn, like he's, he has the bag of popcorn, so he's like, got it. He's not covering because the bag of popcorn says like Twisters on it. It's like whatever, the marketing. He's like not holding it like this. Glenn Powell's just kind of like holding it down like this. And Tom Cruise is like, oh, you like make sure, like he's like telling him essentially hold it from the bottom, get the popcorn in the shot. This is a popcorn movie. Yeah. This is a summer blockbuster. Like this is what people are going to look at. And it's like just these little things that Tom Cruise sort of knows that like,
if you want lessons on how to be a pro, who else
Tom
you got?
Cruise, man. I tell you. Anyways, yeah, you should. I'll check that out. I'll find that and send it to you. But so not hell of a picture, not surprising, but we're moving on this week. We're still gonna do next week. We have an interesting sort of why don't you tell everybody what we're pivoting to next week? Still sort of in this world, but yeah.
Yeah, we are going to pivot, but in a kind of, sticking with the theme initially. So we will keep running with 90s summer blockbusters, but we're going to begin a run on a theme. And what we're going to look at are movies that play with our sense of reality. And so we are going to start next week with what is undisputably a summer blockbuster, and a 90s summer blockbuster at that. It is the Wachowski sibling classic, The Matrix.
Ooh,
and yeah, from there, well, we'll take it. We'll take it. Well, you'll see where we'll take it. We won't give that away just yet. But like I said, we're going to do a little run on ideas of reality and movies that sort of toy with our sense of it. And beginning with, where better to begin than The Matrix?
Yeah. So this is sort of our bridging movie that is both a 90s summer blockbuster and also a movie that sort of plays with our sense of reality. And then we'll kind of dive a bit further into a couple other movies that sort of play with our sense of reality. So this is going to be fun. We're both, sort of in the sci-fi world for these films. And it's going to be, they're going to be bangers like we always try to do. Try everybody listening that, we want to keep as many fun and entertaining movies that are, people have seen and are aware of. I like to keep that going.
Absolutely, especially in the summertime. This is kind of stuff you want to watch. Like dense, heavier sort of subject matter. That's for the winter months. In the summer you want to keep things.
Yeah, we're not opposed to that.
And that's what we're gonna do.
But let's do it when we can. No. We don't want to go outside and enjoy the summer.
Absolutely.
But okay, so we got The Matrix next week. This has been Twister. Maybe we'll have a quick chat about Twisters if we can both see it in time for next week.
We could do a little coda to this episode with a Twisters follow up.
Absolutely. Okay, so for David Hollandshurst, my name is Andrew Bartlett, and we will see everybody next week on another episode of Hell of a Picture.